We live.
Thank you.
Good morning. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Title: Is Your Business Finally Deregistered? My name is Shani Kelly, and I am from the Corporate Education Unit and will be the facilitator for today's program. CIPC has finally deregistered companies and CCs, closed corporations, which have been in the annual returns deregistration process for more than 3 years, and for which the notification process, as per Company Regulation 40, has been completed. In the studio to share information in this regard is Advocate Krista Cloco, the Senior Manager for Companies and Closed Corporations. After her presentation, we will have a question and answer session. However, during the presentation, you are welcome to type your questions under comments. The recording of this webinar will remain on Facebook and YouTube should you wish to view it later. Advocate Krista's presentation is already uploaded on the CIPC webpage. I now hand you over to Advocate Cloco for the presentation. Good morning, Advocate Cloco.
Good morning, Shani. Good morning, everybody. Oh, my apologies. I pressed on something and some few things fell in the background. So my apologies for that. So now, welcome to everybody. I hope you're going to find this insightful as to how to proceed now that the final deregistration has occurred. We are picking up from our online inquiry system that there's a lot of customers that are now wanting to know what happened. It's not necessarily directly asked that way, but we can pick it up from the type of information that they provide us, that they may have been caught a little bit off guard with the final deregistration. So I'm going to dive straight in then. All right, just briefly on annual returns. We're talking here about the annual return deregistration that has occurred. It's not the voluntary deregistrations that we're going to talk about or specifically focus on for companies and closed corporations that want to deregister. This is specifically for non-compliance in terms of the legislation of the Companies Act regarding annual returns that triggered it. So before we start, just a reminder, I'm not going to go through annual returns. We did a lot of presentations and information at the end of last year regarding annual returns. So if you have not attended those previous webinars, please go to YouTube and watch them. Please, if you have not done the free online course for directors, please do so. It actually gives you a very nice indication of what the Directors Lab responsibilities are. And please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube if you don't already do so. We post a lot of information every single day in order for you to stay up to date. As for this annual return final deregistration that has occurred, there's the notices that we have issued over the time of period of time that relates to this. There is a new notice with which the Commissioner has signed off that will be published shortly. I'm waiting for publication and then it can be added to the list. But the content of this webinar is based on the content of that notice. All right, so again, just go to the annual returns if you've not done so. So now, annual return, final deregistration. So how do you identify that your enterprise is finally deregistered? All right, and whether it's an annual return final deregistration specifically. So if you go do determine the status, if you go to the BIS profile on the BIS portal, which basically it's also called the free enterprise search, you will see if you type in the registration number or the name, it will say AR final deregistration. Okay. Just a reminder to everybody that AR final deregistration and voluntary final deregistration, the legal consequences is the same. We sometimes get requests, can I switch from AR to a voluntary deregistration? No, the legal consequences are the same. As CIPC, we just differentiate between a voluntary and an AR on our data side. So how do we manage it so we know what triggered the cause of the final deregistration? So a voluntary And the AR is just an administrative aspect that we add to it so that we can identify what was the trigger of it and manage the data surrounding it. And of course, you as well then can know what the trigger was. So please go to BIS portal, the BIS profile, to check the status and see whether it's AR final deregistration. We're getting a lot of inquiries where clients are saying they're trying to file annual returns and they get the message is to say that the entity cannot file annual returns, please contact CIPC. Right, so when you've got a final deregistration or you are liquidated, you are dissolved, that's the type of message that you are going to get. You will not be able to file annual returns when you get that message. Please go, if you get that message or you have a client and you type it in and that's the message that you get, go do a BIS profile search, a free enterprise search, to go check the status and determine whether it was dissolved due to liquidation, finally deregistered, involuntary deregistration, where it are, because the way to get it out of that status or to correct the causes for that status will depend on the type of status it is. All right, so we finally deregister for AR non-compliance, and of course the subsequent, there's the non-compliance with other elements as well, like BO and AFS and FAS, that's linked up to annual returns. We started the process to run it through from the 19th of January to 23rd of January 2024. So your final deregistration date will be in that date range. The reason why it's a date range, not a specific date, is that we do the final deregistration systematically. We have to run through the entire company's electronic registry and apply rules and see whether it meets the criteria and to be finally deregistered. Now that takes a lot of time. It needs to run through our entire database. So that's why it's over a period of time. We finally deregistered just slightly over 1.7 million companies and closed corporations for non-compliance. For those that may have attended the annual return webinars before, please note that companies that are inactive and on the registry actually poses a risk to be used for money laundering and terror financing and other corrupt activities or fraudulent activities, and therefore it's imperative that we need to keep up to date with our registry must be up to date regarding whether it's active or final or off the registry. Just another note, this is for companies and closed corporations only. This bulk deregistration was not for cooperatives at all. So the entire focus of this presentation is just on companies and closed corporations. All right, so what now? We have ran the final deregistrations. So we're now in the process of sending the final deregistration notices to all the active directors and members of closed corporations. It's being emailed to them. It's only for the ones that got finally deregistered last week. It's going to take about 2 weeks because we need to balance this out with other elements that services that we provide because it uses the same data in infrastructure. So it's going to take about 2 weeks to complete, and it's just over 4 million letters that we have to email. So as you can imagine, with the amount of transactions that we have and the notifications and your Core 39 and your new company forms and everything that goes with it, it's going to take some time because we need to balance all of this out. So you are now finally deregistered. You need to go and determine before you do anything else whether there was economic value in the name of the business. And you must be able to prove that economic value, right? The reason why I'm saying in the name of the business is we know that clients sometimes keep their bank accounts, for example, in their own personal names or the personal names of the directors and the members or the directors, but they're actually using it for business purposes. That proof must be in the name of the business, not its directors, not its members. So if there is economic proof of economic value, you can reinstate. It will be as if it was never finally deregistered once the reinstatement process has been completed. If there was no economic value, you need to consider doing a new company registration. We are not going to reinstate. And there's good reason for it. And when we get to the reinstatement, I will actually indicate why we apply that. Another thing that we have implemented with this final deregistration is that for those companies and closed corporations that was finally deregistered last week, we will protect their names on the registry for a period of 6 months. After 6 months, that names will become available for any other customer to reserve. For example, ABC Clothing, right, was finally deregistered. Now I want the name ABC Clothings. Right, it's very closely. Please note there's rules that we apply regarding name reservations, but now I want to apply for the name. If it's within the 6-month period, we will not give the ABC Clothings, right? Because we've got this 6-month protection for the sole purpose for those that want to reinstate. When they reinstate, that they get their name back, and then we don't sit with duplicate or quite similar names at the registry. And it's only valid for a 6-month period. After the 6th month, it becomes available for anybody to reserve. Please note, this is not a legal thing that we're doing. It's an administrative protection that we are doing. So we try to do it based on our search and approval processes. It's not guaranteed. If you do reinstate and your name is quite similar to another one, you'll have to go to the company's tribunal, unfortunately, for what we call the name objection process that resides with the company's tribunal in terms of Section 160 of the Companies Act. CIPC does not have the authority to adjudicate over who's got the strongest right to a company name. All right, the next one is you've now made a deposit, you've got money in your customer account, but you're finally deregistered. So in the money in that account, or the deposit or the money, you can either use it for the reinstatement process, use it for the new company registration, or you can request a refund if you don't want to do any other registered business. So, but we'll get to the process of refunds in these a little bit while. All right, so you did not get your legal notices. Remember, in terms of Regulation 40, we send out legal notification, which was emailed out to all the active directors and members as last year. If you did not get the core 40.3 or the 40.4 or the final deregistration notice, please remember the final deregistration notice is going to take about 2 weeks to complete, so just be patient. It may mean that your contact details of the directors and members are outdated. The contact details of a service provider that originally registered your company may have been used. We may not have any contact details, depending on the age of the company or the closed corporation. In that regard, you need to do a director or member amendment in order to ensure that we've got your cell phone and email address of the directors, not your service providers. Intermediaries, please don't use your contact details. The directors and the members are liable or responsible for compliance with the legislation, and therefore the notice and information needs to go to them directly. Okay. So that is what now regarding final deregistration. Now, very important, there are and there will be cases, and it's known that there will be cases like this, that was under the impression or it was on the list for final deregistration, but is not finally deregistered. Right? Again, go check on the BIS portal what the status of the enterprise is. It may not have formed part of the current batch of final deregistrations. Okay. Please remember we do sporadic deregistration over a period of time, and we took everything that is of a certain age and put it into this batch, and then we stopped. Because otherwise we got too much data and then we start getting data problems. So we had a cutoff date for this batch. There may have been data problems, so especially on the older companies. So remember I said we systematically run through our database and apply certain rules to see whether we can finally deregister you or not. So when there's certain data that's missing or incorrect, you may have passed by. Because we could not identify it systematically. Please note, we don't go through one by one by individual to go through our registry. This is all systematically done by applying of rules into our database. There's no manual intervention in this. The other option is there may have been an objection to the final deregistration from SARS for outstanding liabilities, investigations, those type of matters. The banks as well for outstanding liabilities, or even lawyers for legal litigation. So, and then we'll skip it. What do I mean by skip is you are still in AR deregistration. You're not just finally deregistered. Very interesting. And this is where the 3 years rule comes in, is So you can't just bluntly say everything that didn't was deregistered. We need to look at specifically when was it referred, when was the last compliance, was there any objections to say whether it should have been finally deregistered or not. You can't just make a blanket. So what we have done with SARS and the banks and the lawyers, if the company has been in the deregistration process for longer than 3 years, and you'll get to the date as to where our cutoff date was, we did not entertain any objections. We finally deregistered it because we can't have these entities forever onto our registry hanging in the air. So if you were under the impression or your client was supposed to be finally deregistered, check the status. It should say whether there was an objection that was received. Apply the rules that we're going to go through quickly now and see whether it's on the list. And if you are in doubt, please log a ticket for the annual return team so that we can go check. As I said, we need to deal with every one of these things on a case-to-case basis. We cannot make blanket assumptions as to on companies that close corporate. We need to go look into individually what their data was and where there was and what happened to it. All right. So who formed part of the current final deregistration batch? So we referred in this batch, the specific batch, everything that was in ARD registration before July 2023. So if you came into the ARD registration process afterwards, or you're non-compliant or became non-compliant after that end of July 2023, you didn't form part of this bulk deregistration. We need to have a cutoff date. Otherwise, we have got running data and it becomes problematic for us to accurately determine whether you should be finally deregistered or not. The history, when you do the BIS portal search, if you look at the historical transactions, it will show that there was an issuing of a 40.3 letter or notice. That's also an indication that it formed part of this bulk deregistration. The history will also reflect that there was a Government Gazette notice reference of 2023-07. So those are your indicators whether the company or closed corporation form part of the batch or not. All right, so that's what now, whether you form part of the batch, how do we identify the batch? So let's get into the reinstatement. But just before we touch on the reinstatement, please note I did not touch on the requirements for new company registrations. I think those are very well known, and it is available on our website. And for those that are manages their own business affairs, please use the BIS portal for new company registrations. All right, reinstatements. Very key, and that's why it's the first line. They must have been economic value on the date of final deregistration. The reason why we're doing this is we have picked up many moons ago, many moons ago, is that people reinstate, they let them be finally deregistered, and then once they are ready, or they want to sell it, or they want to use it, they reinstate the companies or closed corporation. A lot of them did it for the intention to create the impression that these companies or closed corporations are in business for a period of time, let's say 5 years or 6 years. Meantime, it was not doing business. So for us, that's misrepresentation. And that's one of the reasons. The other reason is that we are one of the few jurisdictions in the world that actually allow reinstatements of companies and closed corporations. And we have to make sure, in terms of our mandate as the CIPC, remember the CIPC, we need to keep an up-to-date and effective registry of companies and closed corporations, meaning those that are actually doing business. So we will only allow you back onto the registry if you can prove that there was economic value, that there's a reason for you to be put back on the registry as active. Remember, we still keep your data, but that's the reason why. We need to make sure that you're actually truly active. Also note that a lot of companies and closed corporations that are deregistered, they do have the risk of being used for fraud, misrepresentation, money laundering, terror financing, all those type of things. So we need to make sure that there is value and there's a reason for them to come back on the registry. We don't want to put in empty shells or empty enterprises back on the registry that may pose a risk. Okay, so examples. These are examples only, and this is not the end all of the requirements. This is just a broad high-level list of the proofs. If you are in doubt as to the proof that is needed, please log a ticket and the reinstatement team will advise you to it. We are picking up strange things like assets, a person that has got a car, an aeroplane. We had a couple of years ago a train car, literally a train car that was standing in a yard, as to the reason for reinstatement. So bank statements, of course, that's the most common evidence, 6 months before and 6 months after final deregistration, again, in the name of the business. Does it have immovable property? You can use the wind deed or letters from the land registry to confirm that there's immovable property or a servitude. The company or closed corporation may have IP rights registered into it, for example, trademarks. You can do an extract from the trademark registry free of charge. It's on our website available. Shares, the company may hold shares in another company. We need a letter or a notification from the issuer of the shares, not the company that's finally deregistered that owns the shares, the person that issued the shares to them to confirm that is still holding the shares. The company or CC may have outstanding liabilities, for example, with SASH or the municipality. We need a letter or a notification from SASH that there's a credit or a rebate or outstanding tax liabilities. The same if the company has got an outstanding municipal bill. Remember, again, in the name of the business, that it needs to be paid. Anything that proves that it's got a liability or it's got an asset or an economic value that needs to come back. We also get a request about lease agreements. That's also acceptable. But the lease agreement must indicate the parties, and one of the parties must be, or the lessee must be clearly indicated in the name of the company or the CC. And the lease agreements must still be valid. It must not have expired. We all know that contracts have got a start and an end date. So it must still be in that validity period of time. Then assets like a car, an airplane. We need a statement from the financier or a confirmatory letter or a notice from the Department of Transport, if it's a car, for example, or for an airplane, the owner of the airplane, etc. The principle of this list of proof, and this is the founding principle, is the proof must originate from an independent third party to the company or closed corporation. The company or closed corporation that was deregistered, we're not going to take your word for it. We need an independent third party to that deregistered company or closed corporation to provide the confirmation. It's best practice to ensure that what is submitted is truthful and correct. Again, if you need clarification, please log a ticket for the reinstatement team. Please note, and it's very important to customers and closed corporations, the annual return team that deals with inquiries on annual returns and also the reinstatement team is a very small group of beautiful ladies. They're trying their best to keep up to date, to deal with things as quickly as possible, but because of this bulk deregistration, we are getting higher than normal volumes of inquiries. So just be patient. We'll try to get to you as quickly as possible. The same goes for our call center. It's part of the process that we are going to receive higher incoming call rates. There may be a chance of increased drop rates, etc. Please just be patient. We will get to your inquiry as quickly as possible. All right, so who may apply for reinstatement? This is the tricky one. And you should not just read the one section of the Companies Act for this. So Section 82.4 of the Companies Act said that any interested party may apply for the reinstatement of a company or closed corporation to the CIPC. Very simple, very straightforward. The challenge now arises because the reinstatement process is not just the application itself, the Core 40.5, but with that filing, you need to legally submit outstanding annual returns, beneficial ownership declaration, AFS and FAS, the compliance checklist, for example. Sorry, I didn't note it there. All those needs to be filed. But those annual returns must be filed by the company or its duly appointed representative. A beneficial ownership must be submitted by the company or the beneficial owner himself. AFS or FAS must be submitted by the company or the closed corporation or its duly appointed representative to file, or its auditors. So in order to complete the reinstatement process, the other requirements, any interested person cannot complete those functions. So you're going to be in stalemate. And there is legal case law that clearly states that you need to file annual returns in order to complete the reinstatement process in law. So you're going to be basically in limbo. And of course, after I think 30 or 60 business days, we finally deregister you again if you've not completed the annual returns, the BO and the AFS or the FAS components. So that's why. And that's why, and a lot of people it struggles to understand that's why it's only the company and closed corporation that can actually apply for reinstatement or its duly appointed representative. Any other third party, like the banks or a creditor, SARS, after you finally deregister, they must apply to court in order to get that reinstated. So steps for reinstatement. Step 1, determine the status. It must be AR final deregistration. We get requests for reinstatement of a liquidated or a dissolved company sometimes. Please check the status before you start the process. Again, it's on the BIS portal, the BIS profile. Do the assessment as to whether there's economic value at the time of final deregistration and that you can prove it. Okay? Step 3, source all the required documentation and information, not just for the reinstatement, but also for the annual returns, the AFS, and the beneficial ownership filings. Right? You need to source all that information. Deposit your funds for 200 Rand. The 200 Rand must reflect in your customer code before the sending of the email for the reinstatement. Now, again, the payment for annual returns is slightly different. It is not deposited in the customer code. You can, but you can also do a card payment. So it's sometimes it depends on what you prefer. Is just to do the 200 Rand, have it cleared, submit the reinstatement application. Once that is completed within usually the ladies attend to it within 1 to 2 days. But as I said, we're going to expect higher incoming volume. So it may probably take about 3 or 4 days for the initial couple of months. Once you get the confirmation, do the deposit for the AR or decide to do a card payment for it. Okay, so in short, for the reinstatement, the 200 Rand must reflect before you send the email. A lot of people make the deposit and email at the same time. The beautiful ladies in the reinstatement department, they process so quickly. By the time that your money has cleared 3 minutes afterwards, they've already rejected because that's how quickly they process. So please make sure that the money reflects in the customer code before you send the email. It's going to minimize unnecessary rejections and unknown factors. Submit the application for reinstatement and all supporting documents as a single email to reinstatements@cipc.co.za with all attachments in PDF or TIFF. No Word, no Excel. Please don't add another email to it. Our automatic systems, when it sees another email, it cannot read the document. So it rejects it when it creates an image upon which we process. If your document for a sake is rejected and you fix it, you need to send everything again with the corrected information. You cannot just send a piecemeal, just the outstanding information. Our system is not clever enough to put all these different emails together and to make an image upon which we process. We don't process on paper in the reinstatement environment. We process on image. Our systems convert the email to an image upon which we process. So everything must be there on that image. Now you get your application back. It says, yes, you have been successfully, you're now in reinstatement process. Submit and pay, file all outstanding annual returns, the latest AFS or FAS, and the beneficial ownership. Once that is done, your status will go back into active. But then you also have to go check and double check to make sure that all the directors and addresses and all that information is updated. Currently, the annual return does not allow for the updating of that information. To make sure that you don't land up in the same challenge regarding final deregistration, go check that all of this information is up to date and relevant. It's in any case a legal responsibility that changes to directors must be updated within 10 business days. There are legal requirements as to how quickly information must be filed with the CIPC. So please bring all of that up to date. All right, if it's a court order or there's court documentation, please email it to corporatelegalservices@cipc.co.za for service and recordal. They record it and then they'll email to the relevant production mailbox in order to be processed. Please, if you're an attorney, please add your customer, if you do have a customer code, onto the document, please, for the court orders. It's a legacy system upon which we process. So if we don't have the customer code for court orders, you're not going to get notification. So other advice for legal practitioners that are sending through the court orders, if it's not been processed within a couple of days, please go check on the BIS portal what the status is to make sure that it's been processed or not, because there's not an automatic out if you don't put on the customer code. Very important for court orders, and a lot of attorneys forget this. We had strongly advised that the court order must also mandate the company or closed corporation to bring all outstanding obligations up to date within a period of time. That's like file the annual returns, BO and the AFS or FAS. The reason for that is because this is an automated system that puts companies and closed corporations into deregistration and finally deregister it, is that if the annual returns are not filed, remember the trigger is whether you're outstanding for annual returns or not, we'll put you back, this company or closed corporation, back into the AR deregistration for non-compliance. And because we have processed the court order, we have complied with the court order, and therefore the system is going to automatically put it back into that process. So having the court oblige them to do it is actually going to limit the fact that it goes back into the AR deregistration process. All right, reinstatement resources. There is where to find the requirements. There's a practice notice what needs to be done that was issued in 2022. There is the banking details as well if you need to do the 200 Rand deposit. Beneficial ownership, remember you also have to comply with that. There is the user guide information, and again, the webinars for annual returns, beneficial ownership, AFS and FAS, everything is on YouTube. All right, so that's the reinstatement requirements. So now some incidental information regarding this whole process. I know this is quite a lot, and I thought rather be detailed and we all know what to expect in order to minimize unnecessary inquiries, confusion, and to manage your expectations with the CIPC regarding this whole process. What we have identified, the first bullet, is there are people that have made the deposit but has not actually filed the annual returns. A lot of people are still under the impression that a mere payment is equal to filing. That is incorrect. You need to file and pay for a valid annual return to be regarded as being filed in law. Remember, we're talking here about legal obligations and legal timelines. So a mere payment is not annual returns, and we are going to keep you into final deregistration. That is not a reason for us to uplift the status. You will have to apply for reinstatement if you meet the reinstatement requirements. If you filed the annual returns, but you did not file the latest beneficial ownership declaration, such must please be filed separately, failure of which CIPC may initiate investigation against the company and issue a compliance notice. So that's just a reminder. We do understand that beneficial ownership and AFS and FAS and annual returns looks like a single process, and we try to make it as a single look and feel as seamless as possible. But it's three different services that are stringed together, and they are managed by different departments in CIPC. Beneficial ownership is not administered by the Companies and Closed Corporation Division, which deals with annual returns and reinstatements or administers that. So technical questions on beneficial ownership must please be logged on the inquiry system under corporate legal services and the category beneficial ownership. We've already done the names component. I'm not going to rephrase that. Technical questions regarding annual financial statements, financial accountability supplements, especially those that did not file in time because the AFSs were not up to date. You need to log it for the financial statements or under IXBRL fault logging, because they need to tell you which version of the AFS or the FAS needs to be filed in order to comply with the annual return. That is dealt with also by another department. It's a specialized area, and that's why they manage it. Then the final deregistration list that we usually publish in the Government Gazette will be done in due course. It's 1.7 million records that we need to put onto a Word document, PDF, and then publish. It is going to take us some time to get that done. So just bear with that. As I stated, very interesting enough, the Government Gazette publications is actually a requirement that came under the 1973 Act before 2006. 2006, there was a practice note, if I remember correctly, that stated that we can now publish on our website. And the 2008 Act doesn't require us to publish in the Government Gazette the final deregistrations. It is a courtesy. We still do that. But the main thing is you check the status on the BIS portal via the BIS profile or the free enterprise search, and the letters are done as confirmation of the process and that there was communication. It's actually not the Gazette, although it's old habits, and old habits die hard. All right, just a reminder again, please be patient with the final deregistration notices that are being emailed out. As I said, it's going to take approximately 2 weeks. It's 4 million letters above all the other notifications of the stuff that we process on a daily matter. For those that are filing annual returns and looking for their certificates, please just expect a slight delay in the issuing of other communications for other business services as well. It's run over the same network, and we're trying to balance out everything that needs to go out. So please be patient. We are receiving a high level of requests. I know there's been clients that has been eagerly awaiting for the final deregistration. So you have logged the fault, and the team is trying to attend to it. But if you have not done so, just be patient. Maybe give it a 2-week period. Remember, it's going out to the directors and the members. If you have not received it, then please log a fault. But just give us some time to clear it out a little bit, please. All right, refunds. If you want to do a refund because you don't want to register a new company or you don't want to reinstate, you can request a refund from our finance department. Department is finance and the category is refund. You will have to provide a copy of the ID of the owner of the customer code. You need to provide proof that you made the deposit. It's good financial practice. You cannot give money to a person if you're not sure if the person in that instance actually gave out the money in the first place. So it's that requirement. I know some clients find it difficult to understand that, but as a government institution that is administered under the PFMA, and we need to check for every single cent and rand that it goes to the right place, you need to provide us proof that you made the deposit in the first instance in order to give it back to you. So, how do you stay in the know? I know I've repeated this ad nauseum, but it's very important that a lot of the people or companies and closed corporations, the business that are finally deregistered, don't know, right? And unfortunately, in terms of the South African context, just because you didn't know did not take away your legal responsibility. You are supposed to know if you're a registered company of what you need to comply with. So please follow the CIPC on the social media platforms. Refer to our website on a regular basis, especially on the notices side. Check your company or closed corporation status regularly, and also do the online training course for directors. Then you will know what is expected of you. Also, keep your company records easily accessible. It's not the responsibility of the CIPC to be your personal record keeper. It's the duty of each company and closed corporation to keep its own records. Read the welcome letter that's and the registration certificate. The welcome letter has got information that you need to register for PO, trademarks, etc. on it. All filing confirmations and content. If you use the service provider to do it, insist that they provide you with a proof pack for your own records. Financial records, minutes of meetings, share registers, all must be kept by the company itself. Just for those that are interested in the Learn IBIS, the Director free training course, there is the link to it. And then I think that comes to the end of my presentation. I would like to thank everybody for the time and the patience with this process and with this information. Thank you very much. Shani, over to you.
Thank you, Krista. We will now start with the question and answer session. Okay, I see there's quite a lot of questions already in the comment section. Please note that the presentation that Advocate Clocker has just done is available on the CIBC website. Okay, so for the first question, what was the reason to remove VAT registration from CIBC? And is there a possibility to register for VAT like tax?
Okay,
Okay,
all right. That is a SARS matter, not a CIPC matter.
right.
So you need to contact SARS regarding your VAT registration if you need to register for VAT. What I know about tax and VAT is that not every company has to register for VAT per se. So you need to contact SARS to indicate, my apologies, for confirmation whether you need to be registered for VAT and how that works. It's not a CIPC function in law. It's a tax matter. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that clarity. Okay, the next question is kindly confirm all annual returns needs to be up to date before attempting to file a voluntary deregistration application. Okay, I
All
think that's
right.
just a
So
statement.
yes, just a note on that. There was a notice issued, 12, 18 months ago, that if you're on the ARD registration process, not final, in the ARD registration process, we will convert it to the voluntary dereg process. There is an additional sentence that needs to be brought onto your letter for the voluntary deregistration process, but there is a notice on the website. They can just refer under it's under the long list of notices about 12 months to 18 months ago. There was a notice issued for that as to the requirements.
Thank you. The notices were also on our Facebook page. Okay, this gentleman would like to know how to renew my BE certificate.
Please note that we are only focusing on annual return final deregistrations. You're more than welcome to log a ticket for the BE unit to answer your inquiry. It will depend on when last was the BE issued, so you can just log a ticket for the BE team to assist you.
Thank you for that. Okay, right. The next question is how does one file for annual returns if the company has not been active since registration with CIPC?
All right, very important. Please refer to the annual return webinar regarding that clearly states whether you are active or inactive. Just holding assets, it does not matter. You are legally obliged to comply with annual returns regardless of whether you were operating or not. So again, if you were not operated and you don't know what your current status is, go to the BIS portal under the BIS profile, check your status, and then from there make a decision based on the content of this webinar and others.
Okay, thank you for that. Next question is can we get the slides afterwards?
That's
There's
it.
Lee. The slides are on the CIPC website. Please refer to the website. Okay, it's under webinars. You will find the slides. Next question, please. Whoa, capital letters. Justice says, stop what you are doing to us, CIBC. Stop it. I don't owe SARS. No, anyone. My submissions are clear with SARS. And you say I owe you mean while my business did not make any profit or money? What must I submit? Stop it. This must come to an end. Okay, Justice is a
Oh.
bit angry.
It is a frustrating process, especially if you're not familiar with annual returns. And that's why we're having this session, is to educate you regarding what to look out for. So Justice, again, SARS and outstanding tax liabilities and outstanding tax returns is done with SARS, not the CIPC. SARS deals with tax that goes to Treasury that pays for other services that government provide. CIPC is only the registry for companies, closed corporation co-ops, and intellectual property rights. So we register and deregister those rights and entities, and we maintain that information. It's a different scope. If you're finally deregistered, please go do the BIS search on the BIS profile, see what your status is, and see whether you comply for reinstatement or not, and familiarize yourself with the requirements of running a company on the CIPC side. For such, you can contact such. They do have guides regarding the tax obligations.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Advocate, for that. Our next question is, it would really be helpful if deregistration notice is sent to the registered company secretary in addition to the directors.
All right, we will think about adding that. Please remember it's got a cost implication as well to the CIPC, and the ultimate duty in terms of law lies with the directors and the members. But I'll make a note of it for us to consider adding. But that means that it must be registered in terms of a Core 44, which is the formal appointment of a company secretary on those. But we'll consider that.
Thank you, Shemaine. Thank you, Advocate. Let's see the next question that we have. If my company is deregistered for failing to file annual returns, nothing bars me from registering a new company and the money due for annual returns is forfeited.
The money is
Okay.
not forfeited. Remember, the money that is in your customer account is there. It can be utilized for any service of the CIPC. So you do not forfeit it. As per the presentation that was just provided, you may use that money in order to apply, or you may probably, depend on what you've got in your customer account, you may just have to top it up. You can reinstate or then register a new company. And then if whatever is left, let's say you made a deposit of, please don't take literally, let's say there's 500 Rand in your customer account, you register a new company for 125 Rand, you've got left over, you can either ask for a refund or you can use that for the next upcoming annual returns in a year's time to comply with that. So it's up for you to decide how you want to manage it for now.
Advocate, I think what she means is that the money that she owes CIBC, her annual returns owing to us, will it be forfeited if she
Okay.
closes, if she registers her company?
Yes, that's something that's not in there. So what the law states regarding reinstatements, if you're finally deregistered, you cease to exist. I think we're all familiar with that. So you can't really then enforce obligations like annual returns while you're in that status. But once you reinstate, you've got the intention to become back onto the registry. The law states that all annual returns will become due for filing and must be brought up to date. There's also case law that states once you are reinstated, right, fully reinstated back onto the registry, it is as if you were never finally deregistered. It's almost like an eraser was taken and wiped out your final deregistration period. And with that, every single obligation that the company or the closed corporation had with CIPC in terms of the Companies Act, the Closed Corporations Act, such wherever becomes enforceable. So once you reinstate, you need to evaluate the business's liabilities regarding such everybody else, because those will become due and enforceable. I hope that answers the question. It's a little bit of a complex answer, but it's the legal answer.
Very informative. Thank you for that, Advocate. Okay, our next question. My company was deregistered and was still active. The company is receiving money from the customer into director's personal banking account. As the company does not have a banking account, I wish to reinstate.
All right. Again, best practice, best advice. Companies and CCs should not be running their financial stuff through the director's bank accounts in their names. So I'm sorry, that is not sufficient proof. You will have to find other means to prove that there's economic value from an independent third party. If you have got an agreement with that service provider, that's a legal agreement. please go log a ticket for the reinstatement team. We will evaluate the situation and tell you otherwise. But you have to indicate to us what you can prove, because we can't guess what your type of operations was and your liabilities and contracts, what you own and don't own, in order to tell you what you can do for the reinstatement requirements. So please refer to the examples and the concept. If it's not listed there, log a ticket and we'll see whether it meets the requirements. Remember, a third party needs to provide confirmation that this entity has economic value or liabilities in order for us to reinstate. You'll have to go do your homework.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Is there any way we can get some time to correct this? We were very patient with CIPC in the last year, when we lost I think it's systems 2 months. Please consider giving us some time. Many of us are not aware of this and didn't get notices.
Okay. Unfortunately, no. This is a legal process that we had to follow, and we had to clean the registry. You need to keep up to breast. That's why we in the annual return webinars and this one, we specifically say how to stay in the know. You need to diarize your anniversary date for your annual returns and your compliance with obligations. You need to familiarize yourself with the Companies Act. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. I know it's a hard lesson, but unfortunately we cannot. It is because of this, we forgot, we didn't know. It confuses the registry. Our registry needs to be up to date and effective. People use the CIPC registry for economic decision making, and there's value into the data that we contain. You have to take responsibility. I know this is not something that people like to hear. You have to take responsibility for your own obligations in law. We will not give you, it's already finally deregistered. It's done, it's dusted. The legal consequences has stepped in. You now need to apply for reinstatement or a new company, depending on the circumstances, and then learn from their experience and find ways and tools and methods to comply with the legislation in time. Remember, CIPC is not the only area where a company or a business have to comply with. You've got to comply with tax legislation. If you've got a business license with a municipality, you've got requirements to meet there. When you start a business, you need to familiarize yourself with the requirements and the industry that you're in order to meet all of those obligations. It's not just you start a business and off you go into the wild. There are responsibilities and requirements and obligations for businesses and registered companies and closed corporations. So unfortunately, no. Sufficient time has been given.
Okay, our next question is, so what is going to happen when I register a new company? I'm going to use the same code because I already paid on my deregistered company code.
Yes, you can use that.
Okay, great. Next question. Good morning. I am trying to register a cooperative for the last 3 weeks without success. I talked to several call center agents, sent emails, logged tickets, and called the landline. No luck. I'm sorry, we're actually only attending to deregistration queries on this webinar. Okay, the next question is, I agree. I was told they will send out already, but I never received mine until now.
Okay, that's unclear as to what you received. You could have
Okay,
received a ticket to the moon or Elon Musk's tickets to Mars. My apologies. You need to be more specific.
Please be more specific with your question. Okay, the next question is, just give us a few minutes. Okay. Oh, your friend again. Will the deregistration automatically deregister your tax number of the company as well?
No, remember that's a SARS matter, and SARS applies their own rules and have got their own legislation that they have to comply with, and their policies and procedures. So just because you finally dereg at the CIPC, although we send the data to SARS, you still need to go to SARS and deactivate everything on their side. But that's also a best practice. If you were in the industry and you had a license for, my apologies, for a business license with a municipality, you need to clean up all of those activities with those organizations and departments where you had legal obligations for or relationships with. So take the final deregistration letter, go to them and ensure that wherever you were doing business or your information was at, to actually sort that out. That includes the Department of UIF and Labour if you had employees, for example, before, and those things may not have been attended to. Thank you.
Okay, the next question is, can I restate a company that wasn't active? No bank statements, no contracts, and etc. No, Stefan,
Right.
you cannot do that.
Yes, that's why on the reinstatement component of this of the webinar, it clearly said it must have economic value or proof.
Okay, next question. We are a company that is finally deregistered. My question is, can I keep our company name and how do we do that?
You can keep the company name, but then you have to register what we call a defensive name. So defensive name is not necessarily linked up with a company or close corporation. We keep it separately. It's valid for 2 years and you have to renew after every 2 years if you want to keep the name. Once you are ready to move from the defensive name to use it again, let's say like 5 years down the line, you'll have to change, you'll have to notify us. There's a process. Unfortunately, I can't recall now at the moment precisely what it is. You will have to, we have to change the defensive name to a registered, to a reserved name, and then you can use it on a new company registration. So yes, you can. Just contact the name reservation department, please, and ask them how you can move, because you are in that you probably are within that 6-month protective period that they can do it, and then they'll advise you how to do it. If you're outside of that period because the company or CC was deregistered a long time ago, the name may already be reserved by somebody else or something quite similar. So just go to log a ticket for the name reservation department for guidance.
Yes, thank you. Okay, our next question is, thank you, Advocate, for answering that question, even though it wasn't related to deregistration. We appreciate it. Okay. Stefan wants to know how to start the reinstatement process.
Okay, Stefan, it was on the, please go back to the slides that's on our website. It is there with all the resources regarding reinstatement and the process steps.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for that. Okay. Next question. Yolandi, if the deregistration was January, how can we give you 6 months after deregistration banking statement?
Okay, no, that's fine. Yes, no, the 6 months before would be fine.
Okay.
It's usually just to give a period of time for flexibility onto the bank statement. So just the 6 months before should be fine. Thank you for that clarification. Yolandi, right?
Yes. Okay, our next question is, a company was registered in 2017 and not paid any annual fees. Where do I start?
Okay. Again, as per this webinar, start with conducting and checking the status of the enterprise. And then based on that, decide what you want to do and then see whether you can, if it's finally deregistered, see whether you meet the requirements for reinstatement, otherwise register a new company, or consider running your business as a partnership or a sole proprietor that does not require registration with the CIPC. So,
okay. Thank you for that. Our next question. Independent third party, meaning I can't submit proof for reinstatement myself.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you for your question, Grace. Our next question is, how do you submit your CIPC annual returns if your company is in final deregistration? The annual return service is blocked out when the company is in a final deregistration.
Right. So again, I did mention that in the webinar before. So that means it's finally deregistered. You cannot submit the annual returns. You have to reconsider whether this company has got economic value or not in order to see whether you need to do a reinstate or can do a reinstatement. Only once, if you go through that page where I have the different, I think it's six or seven steps, you'll see there that it's only after the reinstatement application, the 40.5 has been processed and the company is in reinstatement process, that you'll be able to allowed to file the annual returns, the BO and the AFS or FAS. So unfortunately, you will have to go back to the steps and decide status, economic value, can you prove it, reinstatement, submit, and then file all the annual return information.
Okay, our next question is, I made a payment a day before and cannot file on the same because the system was offline. The following day, when I tried to file, my company was deregistered.
And the system was not offline on the 19th of January. So unfortunately, our notices clearly stated that we start on the 19th. Everything should have been up to date. Your payment and your filing. Remember, annual return filing is only valid or is only regarded as a filing if you've got the information with the payment. So unfortunately, you will have to go and reconsider the steps.
Okay, thank you. Our next question. If my lease agreement is still active and I pay rent, does the lessor have to go to court or can the lease agreement be added to supporting documents?
All right. If you refer to the list of examples of reinstatement proof, it is there. So if the lease agreement is clearly stated, and the lessee is the deregistered company or closed corporation, and the contract clearly states the start and the end date, and it's in that period, the lease agreement can be used by the company or CC to apply for reinstatement.
Okay, our next question is, my company got registered last year, December 2023. So it's more like 2 months old. I think you need a bit more clarity, Alex, on your question.
Okay,
Okay,
so
our next
sorry,
question.
let's just remind Alex that thank you very much for attending this webinar and trying to find out more with a newly registered company. Please, as per the guides, stay in the know, follow the CIPC. Your first annual return will only be due December this year. So please familiarize yourself, do the direct online director course that you know, diarize your anniversary date, familiarize yourself with your requirements to make sure that you are legally compliant and up to date, and that you don't cause yourself stress by not knowing.
And Alex,
Thank you.
when you know when the Christmas bell starts ringing, you have to pay your annual returns.
Something like that. Make sure that we've got your email address that you can get your reminders that your AR is due. Because if you've got your email address, you're going to get a reminder for it.
Okay, next question, please. What happens if my company hasn't been operating?
Um, so you will have to go through the steps and determine your status. This presentation is about final deregistration and reinstatement. So again, even if you're not operating, doing business, you are required in terms of the Companies Act to comply with all the provisions of the Companies Act. So you still need to file your annual returns, your BO. In that case, it will be an FAS. So again, please familiarize yourself by doing the Director online course. It's very helpful. It will it will clarify so many things of what you need to look out for and how to do things. Thank you.
Okay. Our next question is, how do you submit your annual returns if your company is in final deregistration? Okay, no,
I
I
think
think
we've
we
dealt with
already
that.
answered this question. Yes,
Yes. Thank you,
I think
Shani.
we answered this question. Okay, maybe that's the end. Okay. How often do we have to file for beneficial ownership? If I don't file, what are the penalties or consequences of that? So this is
Okay.
a BO question. Will you?
Yes. Please refer to the webinars on beneficial ownership. It explains everything.
Thank you so much for that. Can I submit a company reinstatement application by using a CIPC customer code that isn't linked to the deregistered company?
Yes. On the reinstatement process, we the owner of the customer code or the owner of the customer code don't have to be directly linked up with the entity itself, but you need to have a mandate in law to file for them. And the requirements for reinstatement, if you go to the website, says we need a mandate as well. So your client must just give you a mandate to file on their behalf with all the other supporting documents and forms and things that you need to have.
Is it
Oh,
possible?
sorry, Shani, just for the benefit, please note that I've predominantly focused on the proof that you need. Please go to the website, go through the requirements because you need to have a specific form. You need to actually, there is a list of documentation that you need to send through with it. So please go to the website and just make sure that you tick off all the documentation. I specifically focused on the proof that you need and on conditions that we will consider the reinstatement instead of just running through a checklist approach regarding what documents must be filed. I actually went a little bit more into the content of what was required. Thank you, Sean. Sorry for interrupting you.
It's okay. Okay. Sibo's question is it possible for me to pay the returns and be reinstated because my company has a track record I don't want to lose?
A track record doesn't necessarily mean that you can prove that it had economic value. So, Sibo, you need to go through that steps and assess the status, whether you've got proof of have got economic value or not. So you
Okay.
need to go through those steps, please, Sibo.
Okay. Our next question, or is that the last one? Okay. One more. Once a company has been reinstated, within which period must you file your annual returns?
Oh, sorry, that's the one thing that I haven't went and double checked. My apologies. We administer a lot of business processes in the companies and close corporation division. I think it's 30 business days or 60 business days. Just referred it. It's on the practice note for reinstatement, practice note 1 of 2022. That period is stated there, but I think it's 30 business days. But I have to be corrected. Sorry, I didn't check that before while I was preparing for that. My apologies for that I'm unprepared in that regard.
Okay. Our next question is, okay, how do you deregister? Sorry, I just joined now. I think you should just go and have a look at our presentation, and all the questions have been answered in the presentation. Okay. Our next question is, I just want to get clarity, please. If a company is deregistered and contact an accountant to assist to get it in good standing again, must it be done on the customer profile or accountant's profile?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, so it can be on either profiles. Okay,
That's correct. That's an arrangement between you and your service provider, your accountant.
okay, Karen. I hope that answers you. Okay, our next question is, hi, we applied for deregistration and we haven't heard back yet. The other company we deregistered after we have received. Okay, please just be a bit patient, Sonia. I'm sure they will get to your deregistration letter as soon as possible.
Yeah, Sonia, so just register, just log a ticket. The team will go and investigate and look into the mailbox as to when it was received, what is there. Sometimes what happens is the attachments are corrupted, means that it contains a virus, and then our system removes it, and then we can't create an image for it. So there's various reasons. For example, you may have attached the evidence to another email. Our system is not going to pick it up for processing. So log a ticket. Just be patient with the deregistration team. As we are saying that the deregistration, the AR of the call center, reinstatement teams are getting a high incoming volumes, and it's managed by a small group of people in CIPC, because on normal circuits it's quite manageable. So just be patient, and the team will attend to your inquiry on the ticketing system.
Okay,
Thank
our
you.
next question. Reinstatement, where must the 200 Rand be on whose profile?
We've answered the profile question now more than once. It does not matter.
Okay,
Just refer
Moses.
to the requirements for reinstatement.
Okay, Moses, it can be. You can look at the slides and you will be able to, or go back through the comments and you will see the answer for that question. Our next question is, do you still need to advertise on the newspaper for reinstatement?
And no, that has been removed, I think, about 4 to 5 years ago already.
Okay.
You
Please
don't have
read
to advertise in the local newspaper anymore.
please read the notice so that you are up to date with all our requirements. Okay, our next question. What if my company is deregistered? I have a active business account and SARS is compliant. Is that good enough to reinstate?
If remember, one of the proofs is bank statements, so just that should be sufficient. But just refer to the requirements and how to submit it successfully with the CIPC. But bank statement in the name of the company 6 months before is sufficient.
Okay, thank you, Advocate. Our next question. Do you wait for reinstatements to bring annual returns up to date?
Yes, it's a legal requirement. You need to reinstate or submit the application, the call 40.5. Once that is processed, only then will you be able to file the annual returns.
Okay. Our next question. Can you please sum up reinstatement process, ma'am?
Please refer to the slides regarding the steps of what you need to go through and the resources for reinstatement as to the requirements, how to file, when to submit, and then what is the email address. It's all in the slides and the resources for reinstatements. Thank you.
The slides is available on the CIPC Facebook account as well as the CIPC website. So please, Sibo, you are welcome to use any of those platforms to review them. Okay, our next question. Is a company registered in 2020 also deregistered within this stipulated period if the annual returns was not filed and notice of pending deregistration issued?
Yes, yes, it probably is. Again, just to double check, go to the BIS portal under the BIS profile to check the status of the enterprise. But it's probably finally deregistered. But just double check.
Okay. Is there any more questions? Now I think, okay, reinstated slides are a bit unclear. Does the third party log the ticket on behalf of the company and load the bank statement documents as proof, then ensure that there are enough funds to pay?
No. The evidence, the application itself with the supporting evidence will contain the confirmation from the third party. So the company itself or its service provider may lodge the application for reinstatement, and that letter from the third party or the confirmation from the third party will form part of the pack that is submitted by the company, the CC, or its service provider for reinstatement. I hope that
Okay,
clarifies it.
thank you for that. I'm sure it does. Can I file the annual returns on an annual returns final deregistration company as the BIS portal system is giving me an option to file?
It will probably not allow you to file. No, you need to reinstate first.
Okay, our next question is, what will happen to the names of the deregistered companies? Can they be reused? Advocate? Okay, I think there's just a slight delay on this technology gremlins. Let's just wait a second to see if we can get the advocate back online. Just give us a few seconds. Okay, I see I have lost Advocate Klopper. I think she's trying to log in again onto the live streaming. I will just wait a second to see if I can get it in. Okay. I think there's a technical glitch with the live streaming. So all the remaining questions, there's just a little of them remaining. The Facebook officials of CIBC will attend to them. However, if your questions are not attended to or you need more clarity, please log a ticket. It's very important that a ticket is logged on the QRS system, as this will help us track your question and see uh, uh, if it has been delayed or the reasons behind it not being answered promptly. So it really will be helpful if you have a ticket number in which we can use. I would really like to thank the advocate Krista Clocker for this presentation. We hope you found today's webinar of value and that it was able to assist you. I did see in the comments we had some wonderful feedback. Thank you all for joining our webinar today. Good day. Thank you so much. Bye.